Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah.
We're reading from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter number 6. Prahlad instructs his demoniac schoolmates. This is text number 24. 7.6.24. Tasmat sarveshu bhuteshu jayam kurutu saurhidam bhavam asuram unmuchya yaya tushyat yadhoksaja. This is Prahlad speaking to his friends. Therefore, my dear young friends born of demons, please act in such a way that the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the conception of material knowledge, will be satisfied. Give up your demoniac nature and act without enmity or duality. Show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service, thus becoming their well-wishers. Purport. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 18:55, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvataha. One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as He is only by devotional service. Prahlad Maharaj ultimately instructed his class friends, the sons of demons, to accept the process of devotional service by preaching the science of Krishna consciousness to everyone. Preaching is the best service to the Lord. The Lord will immediately be extremely satisfied with one who engages in this service of preaching Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed by the Lord Himself in Bhagavad Gita 18:69. Nacha tasman manusheshu kashin me priya kritamaha. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. If one sincerely tries his best to spread Krishna consciousness by preaching the glories of the Lord and His supremacy, even if he is imperfectly educated, he becomes the dearmost servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is bhakti. As one performs this service for humanity without discrimination between friends and enemies, the Lord becomes satisfied and the mission of one's life is fulfilled. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised everyone to become a guru devotee and preach Krishna consciousness. Jari Ako Tare Koha Krishnupadesh. This is the easiest way to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By such preaching, the preacher becomes satisfied, and those to whom he preaches are also satisfied. This is the process of bringing peace and tranquility to the entire world. Bhoktaram Jagyatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shantim Richyati. One is expected to understand these three formulas of knowledge concerning the Supreme Lord: that He is the Supreme Enjoyer, that He is the proprietor of everything, and that He is the best well-wisher and friend of everyone. A preacher should personally understand these truths and preach them to everyone. Then there will be peace and tranquility all over the world. The word sauridam, friendliness, is very significant in this verse. People are generally ignorant of Krishna consciousness, and therefore to become their best well-wisher, one should teach them about Krishna consciousness without discrimination. Since the Supreme Lord Vishnu is situated in the core of everyone's heart, every body is a temple of Vishnu. One should not misuse this understanding as an excuse for such words as Daridra Narayana. If Narayana lives in the house of a Daridra, a poor man, this does not mean that Narayana becomes poor. He lives everywhere in the houses of the poor and those of the rich. But in all circumstances he remains Narayana. To think that he becomes either poor or rich is a material calculation. He is always Shad Aishvarya Purna, full in 6 opulences in all circumstances. Again, Prahlad Maharaj has said to his class friends, therefore, my dear young friends born of demons, please act in such a way that the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the conception of material knowledge, will be satisfied. Give up your demoniac nature and act without enmity or duality. Show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service, thus becoming their well-wishers. So, as is explained in the beginning of the 7th canto, The process of devotional service means to make oneself more receptive to the mercy of Krishna. Krishna is like the sun. He's giving the light to everybody. Or, as Prahlad Maharaj says in his prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev, that Krishna is like a desire tree. Imagine a tree that will fulfill any of your desires. Do you know what you want? That's a hard one. And Prahlad says he doesn't consider the lower or the higher. He fulfills everyone's desire. In fact, as mentioned in the Sri Upanishad, Saparya Gat Shukram Akayam Avranam Ashnaviram Shudam Apapavidam Kavir Manishi Paribhu Swayambur Yatat Yatatortan Viradas Shasvati Bhyasamabhyaha. The Supreme Personality of God is perfect in all ways. And lucky he's our friend, huh? And there it is said that he's been fulfilling the desire of all living entities since the time immemorial. Krishna is very attentive, says Gajendra, to the desires of the living entities. It's not that he becomes inattentive, it's that I become inattentive. And when I become attentive to devotional service, and I realize that the Lord is my well-wisher. He's called Suhrit. He's my best friend, well-wisher. He's arranging everything. He's supplying everything. And out of gratitude, I begin to conform to his desires. Then I become more and more receptive to his grace, which is always there. She's always willing and eager to bestow upon the living entity. Gajendra says that the Lord's not lazy. He's always attentive. And it's not, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport of the Gajendra verse, that he waits until we start praying to take notice of us. He's always taking notice of us. But when we pray, Prahlad Maharaj says, it's good for us because it makes us more receptive. When we give something to the Lord, Prahlad Maharaj said earlier, or actually says later, it's just like when you decorate your face, when you're looking in the mirror, and then you'll notice that the reflection in the mirror is also decorated. Have you ever noticed that? Recently? When you put on tilak, maybe. And similarly, he's giving this example that we are like reflections of the Lord. So when we decorate the Lord, we ourselves become decorated. And this is a formula or an epiphany, a realization that changes everything for the living entity's fortune in this world. Because as I'm independently trying to enjoy myself here, I find a lacking. But when I turn my attention to Krishna and try to please him, then naturally all feel satisfied. That's the meaning of Bhoktaram Jagatapasam, is that Krishna is the root of everything. Now, in this verse, Prahlad is recommending that one try to give Krishna consciousness to others. It's a big task and there's jobs for everybody. If you join the Sankirtan movement, we promise jobs, jobs, jobs. Everyone has something to do in the Sankirtan economy. And if one takes the trouble upon oneself to try to extend the knowledge of Krishna consciousness to others, one brainstorms ways in which to present Krishna consciousness so that it's presentable to the particular audience one is presenting to, and goes out of one's way, takes some trouble. It's a little bit of trouble, isn't it? What do you think? It takes some trouble when you even think that I'm going to go out and give Krishna consciousness to others. Then there's another part of one's mind that might say, well, why don't you just stay in instead? Did you ever notice that? Two people notice. I guess it's mostly me. So Lord Shiva has the same mood. He said a similar thing in the 8th canto. In the churning of the milk ocean, he volunteered to drink the poison. Whenever you start a project, the first thing that happens, some poison comes out somewhere. So don't fret. But the poison was going to ruin the universe, so everyone went to Lord Shiva urged by Lord Vishnu, who wanted to glorify his devotee, and they said, please save us. So Lord Shiva said, okay, I'll save you. And he took the ocean of poison in his palm and he drank it down. It stayed in his throat. That's why he's called Nilakanta. His throat turned blue. And there Shukadeva Goswami comments on the mood of Lord Shiva, why he's the greatest Vaishnav. He says, Tapyante lukatapena sarva prayasojana parama aradhanam taddi purusha sakilatmanaha. That the best method of worshipping Krishna is to take some trouble upon oneself to alleviate the ignorance of people in general. That's the formula as being presented here. And therefore, in the purport, Prabhupada says that one should become a guru devotee. It means that we organize our lives in such a way that we are fortified enough, we're enlightened enough, we have enough courage to go out and give Krishna consciousness to others. And this is a method of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This lifestyle of keeping oneself fit spiritually, materially, so that one can distribute Krishna consciousness to others is not just a form of worship, it is the highest form of worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the trouble that one takes to do this. And to become a guru devotee means that one has to perform the activities as recommended by the previous acharyas, tat tat karma pravartanat, and one should invest one's energy in the process of Krishna consciousness. And then courageously engage oneself in trying to give Krishna consciousness to others. So this is the first point I'd like to make for tonight from the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj. And before I go to the second point, how about if we take a few reflections? A reflection just means anything that you heard so far that's stuck in your mind. Shami Prash, with the mic and the reflection, go for it.
I like how Srila Prabhupada said in the purport that one should distribute Krishna consciousness to everyone without discrimination. And I was reflecting on that in light of what you said about how there's unlimited job opportunities in the Sankirtan movement, because without discrimination means that there's all kinds of different situations and modes of nature and circumstances and moods and styles. So there's a way to plug in for everyone, and there's a way to plug in on behalf of everybody. So it's fully absorbing. The mandate is there. Fully
absorbing. Thank you for that comment. If someone took it into their head that they wanted to spread Krishna conscious literature to the world, then such a person could remain fully absorbed, because there's a whole world out there. Even Denver is a universe that one could stay engaged in for the rest of one's life, in strategizing how one would be able to distribute Krishna consciousness to the people of Denver. What to speak of how to follow up after they come and ask, well, what do I do now? Other reflections? Yes. 1, 2.
This morning you spoke about questions. It's great to not only to be conscious of how we formulate our question, but really what is the intention of our question. You said something that was very helpful for me, and was that the more that we ponder over a question, quite often 2/3 of the answer will appear. And I find this often when I'm in environments and I have a question and I think about it, and often it appears. In the material realm more obviously, but in the spiritual realm, sometimes the answer doesn't appear so easily. So this morning I have a kind of a group meeting, and I just finished watching a lecture online, and so I really wanted to bring to the table the potency of a question in inspiration to your talk, and that for me that was a gateway, a doorway to bring Krishna consciousness into the environment. And everyone there knows that I'm into Krishna consciousness. They know that I'm a Vaishnava, or practicing to be, or trying very hard to be a good devotee. But I was taking this opportunity to get us on a really nice, spiritualize our intentions with this project. But the group wasn't in the mood for having a spiritual pep talk. They wanted to be more on the material plane. So my question is, I took the grace to kind of retract, and what is the best way, a spiritual way, to, after a situation like this, where you kind of open up something loving, it's not received, you still want to love unconditionally, and you want to represent Krishna consciousness at the same time. So I kept asking myself, what is the mode I should be in here? I mean, what should I be thinking? And I want some advice from you on that.
Advice is given in the Srimad-Bhagavatam for those who are going to teach Krishna consciousness to others. They should be aware of various categories of people that they approach. So the verse is from the 11th canto, Ishvare taradineshu balisheshu dusatsucha prema maitri kripopeksha yakaroti samadhyamaha. Madhyama means the middle class devotee, means the preacher. It's a very high exalted situation. And there the advice is given that one should give one's love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should make appropriate friendships with the devotees. One should give as much mercy as possible to the innocent who are open for it. And for those who are closed to it, one should be upeksha, or they should avoid them. And Jiva Goswami expands on that in his commentary on the verse, saying that when somebody's not ready for Krishna consciousness, if we artificially try to give it to them anyway, then it'll make them more averse. Whatever resists, persists. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can lead a man to wisdom, but you can't make him think. And so, if you avoid him, but then you go away and you think in a prayerful way, how could this person possibly be helped? This is the mood of the preacher devotees. So, put it in a more simple terms, we're looking for the ripe fruits, those who are already open. And when you find a ripe fruit, then you can take the liberty of picking the fruit. Otherwise, we remain reserved. This is also mentioned in the light of the Bhagavatam, which I noticed you have on your display up there. It's one of the featured books anyone can purchase. There it says that sadhus are like waterfalls. Waterfalls sometimes gush forth water, and other times they hold back. They don't give anything. So similarly, there's a time and place to preach to people, and there's a time to hold back also. So this is the discrimination given in the Srimad-Bhagavatam for preaching. Yeah. Tushta Prabhu.
It's on this theme in the 17th chapter where Krishna is speaking about austerities of the mind, and in the 6th chapter Krishna says the mind can be the best friend or the worst enemy. So in regards to austerities of the mind in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says the best training for the mind is always thinking how to do good to others. So it's inspiring how it's really encouraging that one can feel that they're actively involved just by how their state of consciousness is, even if they're not, even if we haven't touched the pavement that day, even if, whether we're just doing some chores or even doing an arti on behalf of the well-being of Colorado and the universe, our consciousness, we can engage that austerity, always thinking of how to do good to others. So it's a nice impetus for as far as situating our consciousness in a way of prayer. And then regarding Prahlad Maharaj in the 5th canto, also in line with this theme, the prayer of Swastesta Vishvasya Kalopasi, may there be good fortune for the world. And in that purport, Srila Prabhupada says very nicely that one who's free from envy, they're able to be liberal in their social dealings. They're able to move gracefully in their social dealings, which reminds me of like the Madhyamata party or further on, that because there's no envy there, they're able to move liberally in their environment. But I just appreciate this point of austerity of the mind, that something we can all engage. The mind's doing so many things, a lot of times it's our enemy. And one way to make it a friend is just applying this principle, thinking of how to do good to others. And then as you bring up that quote a lot, where attention goes, energy flows, so that consciousness of doing good to others, then the body and mind will,
Yeah.
attention.
Nice. Thank you very much. This is the hallmark of a devotee. Vansha kalpa turubhyascha kripasinabhevascha. The devotee is known to be a desire tree, always thinking how to help others, to fulfill the desires of everyone. And when we move about the world, we may notice that people are giving a lot of things away, but they're not free, and there may be some catch to it all. But when they meet somebody that doesn't have a profit motive, they just want to do good for others, it's a remarkable experience. And this is the great need in the world today, or in any era, is those who are instruments of the Lord and who are purely presenting Krishna consciousness for the welfare of others. And whatever one's doing, if one has that absorption in one's service, this is the way that the mind is really controlled, is thinking like that. Keeping that meditation. Rasiko.
Just along the same lines of the statement that you made after the first comment about just here in Denver, we have our own universe, and we could remain endlessly occupied bringing Krishna consciousness out into this city, but also let alone those that actually come and say, okay, what do I do next? And maybe you could comment a little bit about how those two things are really the same thing. What I have in mind is where Krishna says in the 18th chapter of the Gita that those who explain these things to the devotees, that person is dear. So I think he makes two statements. One is bringing the teaching to those outside, and then he makes a statement about explaining the teaching to devotees. So I'm just wondering, it seems like we have a big emphasis on getting books out, which is really important, but sometimes I think that we don't have enough emphasis on helping one another to actually become Krishna conscious. So maybe you could expand on that a little bit.
We should have unlimited, we put endeavor into helping each other. After all, even in common business terms, people understand that when you have a customer, it's better to keep the customer than to look for new ones, because it's much harder to find new ones than keeping the old ones. And in this similar way, when somebody's already come to Krishna consciousness, which is a large stretch for people in the material world to actually come to Krishna consciousness, then we should recognize that they're rare souls and take the utmost care of them and make sure that they can stay. When geese fly through the sky, there's a lot of them today, or yesterday I saw many of them when we were driving over to Fort Collins. Is that where we went? Yeah. And there were huge flocks of geese. They fly in this V formation. They try to help each other out. The one in front switches roles with the ones in back. Somebody else moves up. Okay, I'll take the front. And if some birds break off from the group because they're sick or they get tired, then a few others fly out with them and they follow them wherever they go. And if they have to stop somewhere, then the other ones wait there. And then when they get their strength back, then they all go off together. And it's important to take care of the devotees who have dedicated their lives to Krishna consciousness, and to reach out to them if they stray away from the process of Krishna consciousness. Even the smallest gesture can be very meaningful to somebody who's feeling wayward. And so it's not just for, it means the process of teaching Krishna consciousness is not just for extending ourselves to new people who've never come in contact with Krishna consciousness, but also internally. And to ourselves also. We should have mercy upon ourselves and take care of ourselves very carefully. Because there is a way in which we can extend, and that, like, well, what about your practice? Like, oh yeah, right, I forgot about that. So you have to also save yourself first, and those who are already here, consider that they're very special people. Yes?
on that point, actually. It was a little bit about the importance of studying ourselves, so take care of yourself first before you go out. It seems like a natural indication. But thinking of, and this was kind of going through my mind as you were speaking, the sacrifices that, for example, Sanatana Goswami taking curriculum with the Bhagavatam, Rupa Goswami translating all of these works, Jiva Goswami translating numerous works for the pleasure of his Gurudev, and if we are not studying or not taking the opportunity to read Prabhupada's books every day, how much they put into, I mean, you have to get the proper tree leaf and then the proper herbs to mix up to kind of mush it up and to write all of these things. So there's such extraordinary devotion in that action of creating these texts, and then to, Prabhupada translating numerous texts and then speaking in a way that we can emulate so, I want to say, precisely, and not being the strength behind the preaching. So I did have a question. This also reminded me of, and I made this point, I apologize, it's duplicated, but in Bhagavad Gita 6.27, it's Prashanta Manasam Henam Yoginam Shantarajasam Upati Upati Shanta Rajasam Brahmabhutam Akalmanam. Brahmabhutam is the point. Being the cowherd boys look a lot like Krishna. They're decorated very beautifully and they have a beautiful smell, and they have this same kind of vibe. Is it necessary? The purport mentioned that one is kind of decorated as they're decorating the deity to that effect. Is that necessary?
The necessary what?
Is it necessary to be in that Brahmabhutam stage? Prabhupada talks in the purport in this verse specifically about being occupied with the lotus feet of the Lord, and that is the Brahma stage. And then to stay in that Brahmabhutam consciousness is to always remain fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord, Prashanta. So is that decoration necessary? Tilak, I understand it a little bit, but...
Can you just say the question in one sentence?
Is decorative?
Should we decorate ourselves?
Yeah, is that necessary? I see it's kind of a theme.
It is a stage of coming closer to Krishna, as mentioned in the Pancha Samskar, which means that there are various stages of coming closer to Krishna. Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions this. So the stages are tapa, which means that initially one begins to turn away from the material world, feel the heat of the material world, that this is really not my home, and decides that internally that I'm not really going to participate in the material world, and starts pulling back from one's connections, especially to sinful activities. And the second step is Paundram, which means Urdhva Pundra, which means decorating oneself as a Vaishnav, especially with tilak, and showing oneself externally to the world that I'm practicing Vaishnavism. And then after that comes Nama, which means one that takes a vow to chant Hare Krishna a certain amount of times every day, also accepts a devotional name, and after that takes mantra. These are the Diksha mantras, and after that begins to perform deity worship. So the decoration of as Vaishnavas is not absolutely necessary, because those are external considerations, but it is a part of identifying with Krishna, identifying oneself as a Vaishnav, if I've understood your question correctly. Thank you very much. So now I have another purport to read to you, if you're open to that. That is 7.7.28. What Prahlad learned in the womb. Therefore, my dear friends, he's still teaching his classmates. This is what he learned while he was in the womb, because, as you may or may not know, while he was in the womb, Narada Muni was teaching his mother Krishna consciousness. Actually, Narada was speaking to Prahlad within the womb. But ostensibly he was teaching the mother, but Prahlad heard what was being taught by Narada. So now he's recalling to his class friends what he learned while he was in the womb, the spiritual instructions he gathered. Therefore, my dear friends, O sons of the demons, your duty is to take to Krishna consciousness, which can burn the seed of fruitive activities artificially created by the modes of material nature and stop the flow of the intelligence in wakefulness, dreaming, and deep sleep. In other words, when one takes to Krishna consciousness, his ignorance is immediately dissipated. Purport. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14:26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan pramabhujaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. By the practice of bhakti yoga, one immediately comes to the spiritual platform, transcendental to the actions and reactions of the three modes of material nature. The root of ignorance is material consciousness, which must be killed by spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness. The word bija nirharanam refers to burning the root cause of material life to ashes. In the Medhani dictionary, yoga is explained by its result. Yoge purvarta sampraptau sangati dhyana yuktishu. When one is put into an awkward position because of ignorance, the process by which one can be freed from this entanglement is called yoga. Would you like to hear the definition of yoga again?
Yes.
Okay. When one is put into, and where is it from, by the way? It's from the Medhani dictionary. When one is put into an awkward position, anyone? Okay. Because of ignorance, the process by which one can be freed from this entanglement is called yoga. Ignorance is awkward. This is called liberation. Muktir hitva yata rupam swarupena vyavastiti. Mukti means giving up one's position in ignorance or illusion, by which one thinks in a way contrary to his constitutional position. Returning to one's constitutional position is called mukti, and the process by which one does this is called yoga. Thus, yoga is above karma, jnana, and sankhya. Indeed, yoga is the ultimate goal of life. Krishna therefore advised Arjuna to become a yogi. Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Lord Krishna further advised in Bhagavad Gita that the first-class yogi is he who has come to the platform of devotional service. Yoginam api sarvesham matgatanan taratmana shradhavan bhajate yomam same yuktata mataha. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. Thus, one who always thinks of Krishna within the core of his heart is the best yogi. By practicing this best of all yoga systems, one is liberated from the material condition. And one can see how awkward material life is. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings bring us back to our original constitutional position as devotees. It's the natural condition of the living entity to be a devotee. And the other forms of consciousness that I drift into because of material association bring me to an awkward form of life. And as described by Karabhajana Muni in the 11th canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, this stage of life is embarrassing for the soul, because actually we have nothing to do with material life, and there's no benefit for us in the material world either. And therefore it's mentioned, Deyam sada paribhavagnam abhishtadoham. So this is a verse about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and spoken by Karabhajana in the 11th canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. So Dhyayam means that one should meditate. Dhyayam sada. And how often should one meditate? At what frequency? Sada means always. Yeah. So I'm always looking for a place to put my attention here in this world. In fact, there are various objects that I can meditate upon. However, it's guaranteed by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita that none of these will bring me satisfaction. However, this verse that I'm quoting now says, Dhyayam Sada, if you channel your attention towards Lord Chaitanya, then you'll always be satisfied. Then it goes on, Dhyayam Sada Paribhavagnam. So gyam means to kill something, to get rid of it. And paribhava means the embarrassment of material life. In other words, I'm in an embarrassing situation now. I don't like to grow old. In fact, it's awkward just being in the body. I was thinking about it earlier, just what it's like growing up. It's easy to gloss over the history of our lives and just think, oh yeah, I was small at one point, and then I grew up, I was an adolescent, and now whatever I am. But when you go back in a granular way and look at all the tribulations that you've been through, well, I'll speak for myself. I can think of not wanting to go to kindergarten. That was the first thing. That was pretty traumatic. And I can think of when one of my classmates broke one of my projects on the way home, just smashed it, it hit the pavement, and I cried for 2 days. I mean, I could go through a list. I don't want to keep you up all night with a little violin, but but it's an awkward situation in the material world. And what to speak of the heavy things? I remember when President Kennedy was shot. I was in kindergarten or first grade, and they sent us home. And I knew what had happened, and it was, I just wanted to be alone. I can remember thinking as a little kid when President Kennedy was shot that I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like this. I don't want to participate. I went to my room, I closed the door, and I just thought, like, this is not, did I sign up for this? I don't like it. It did. I could sense, I intuited it wasn't right. It was an embarrassing situation, and I didn't want to participate in it. And so this paribhavagnam, if you take shelter of reality, and you come to find that there is a supreme person who's all merciful, and that he has a name, and there are ways through yoga. Yoga means to contact, to have communion with that supreme personality of Godhead. Then immediately, as soon as one recognizes this and then expresses one's intention to connect with that person, then immediately, no matter how entrapped one is now, still, because one knows that it will come to an end because of the power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no matter what situation you're in now. In fact, the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami says, Kiratu hunandar pulinda pulkasha abhirashumva yavana kasadaya yene chapapa yarapashrayashaya shudyanti tasmai prabhavishnave namaha. He names all these categories of people, tribes of people from various parts of the earth who are so far away from a spiritual culture that it seems impossible for them to actually be connected through a process of yoga or spiritual process. But he says, because of the power of the process itself, any of them, doesn't matter who they are, how distant they are from a culture which helps one to advance spiritually, those people can become elevated very quickly through the process of yoga, of bhakti. So if one realigns oneself by realigning one's focus in life on Lord Chaitanya, Dhyayam Sada Paribhavagnam Abhishtadoham, then the Abhishtadoham means then your innermost desires will be fulfilled. There are all kinds of ways in which I feel disappointed in this world, and whatever desires I have, they never come quite the way I want them to. But abhishadoha means if you realign yourself properly, then your innermost desire, what you really are looking for, that will be fulfilled by meditating on Lord Chaitanya. So this is what Prahlad Maharaj is advocating, is that don't settle for an awkward life. Don't settle for a life of embarrassment. It's embarrassing for the body, to be in a body and to identify with it is an embarrassment. So give up embarrassing life and rise. Come to your natural position as qualitatively one with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but quantitatively we're eternal servants, tiny parts that are eternal servants. And if one does this, then the effect is immediate. The flow of mercy comes through from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and one can end an awkward life. What do you think? He agrees. Okay.
There's one thing to the first point. There's a portion of the Krishna book I was trying to find, but I couldn't come across it. But I just remember when we were in Govardhan a few years ago, and we read it that Prabhupada said something to the effect that there's never a lack of service. And so but I couldn't find where it was exactly.
Wasn't that also in the same context? He said that when you become more and more engaged in devotional service and you have no time for anything else, then Krishna personally takes care of all the other affairs in your life. Remember that?
Yeah.
That was Govardhan also. Yeah.
And just the, we were talking the other day about risk, right? And that in the material world it's just risky. But actually in devotional service it's not risky. I just have to be sincere. And if I'm sincere, then I find unlimited opportunity to serve. And then I was remembering when I first joined, I was actually with Dr. Luke. We were on the way to a Bud Billigins parade in Chicago to do some Harinam and distribute books. And we were reading the chapter of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 28. It says, "One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, Almighty One, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the difference between work and devotion and work for fruit results." And then the first purport of the first sentence of the purport Prabhupada says, "The knower of the absolute truth is convinced of his awkward position in material association." And I remember how much that hit me, and just and then being at school and like riding the bus and seeing the awkward situations that living entities find themselves in, and energetically filthy, just physically filthy, just all the different ways that people become entangled and enmeshed in this really awkward position when ultimately like the living entities are meant to be with Krishna, and how awkward that is.
Yeah. That was a good find, that sentence. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Just to add to that point also, I know you often like to look up words in the dictionary, so I looked up the word awkward.
Yes.
And it relates nicely. One of the definitions is causing or feeling embarrassment or inconvenience. And it's really interesting. And then you look at the origin, and it comes from the Old Norse afugur, which means turn the wrong way.
Afugur. Turn the wrong way. And that's very much related to the Bhagavatam verse that I quoted yesterday that says, Bhayam dvitiya binibeshitasya ishad apetasya viparya yosmiti. That means exactly that we're facing the wrong way. The ishad apetasya vipar means you turn around the wrong way. What's wrong? You're looking the wrong way. What's the solution? Turn around. That's the simplicity of yoga. Like turn your face back towards the Supreme, and the light is there. It's just a matter of knowing how to turn around. Yes, Prabhu.
I had a point, earlier you said in the start of things, there's always poison.
Oh yeah.
First question is, if you don't have Lord Shiva to drink that poison, how do you patiently wait out the poison or get rid of the poison without being aggressive, I guess?
Well, it depends how much poison is there. When there's an ocean of poison, you better get Lord Shiva, because he's the only one who could deal with it. And that was part of the point there. But we really have to be aware of the fact, as Krishna says in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, whatever endeavor we take up in this world will be covered with some sort of fault. I mean, that was actually the essence of the point I'm making, is when I made that side comment about the ocean of poison, is don't expect everything to go steadily forward without some challenges. They will be there. But Krishna carries what one lacks and preserves what one has. Also, it's important to have good guidance and have powerful Vaishnavas that one can take shelter of in times when poison encroaches in one's life.
Yeah, thank you. My second question relates to I feel very exposed, like bringing this up. But
Like vulnerable kind of?
vulnerable, yeah. So
Is it all right if he brings up something? I think it's
I'm
okay.
in a room of familiar faces. So.
Yeah, you are. And it's online broadcast to the world, so it's okay.
Well, I'm in this point in my life, my spiritual path, like my practice, my yoga, to where everything else is not satisfying, and I feel very connected. I feel very close to Krishna right now. I feel like the desires of my heart, like I have to be very guarded of what I desire inside, because I feel it manifests very quickly, the good and the bad. So, I guess I'm at this point where I don't like using this term, because I always feel like when people say it, they're using it as a cop-out, but like finding balance, because I don't live at the temple, I do live out in the world, I work, I do all the normal stuff, but I'm here pretty much every day. How do I balance that, without it sounding like I'm trying to just make excuses to
I understand.
sin or to-
Yeah. It's a common conundrum, because the way of the world nowadays is that most people have to work. First of all, just make a point. Some people live in the ashram and they're thinking they wish they were outside, and some people are outside and wish they were here. So which is better?
I'm perfectly happy outside.
No, I'm just saying, if you're living in the ashram and you're thinking, I wish I was in the mall shopping or doing anything else but this, or let's just say you work in the mall, but you're thinking, I wish I was in the temple, which one's better?
I think the grass is greener where you water it.
But my point is, it doesn't matter where you are, your consciousness matters. Once in Detroit, there was a huge assembly of brahmacharis and a few sannyasis. Prabhupada was there. And this very meek and humble grihastha man approached Prabhupada and said, there's all these sannyasis, brahmacharis, they live in the temple, I live outside, I have 3 kids, I have to work hard, but I want to be Krishna conscious. He said, but I can't live in the temple, what can I do? And Prabhupada said, this temple is made of brick and stone. Your house is made of brick and stone. In the temple, the business is for Krishna. If in your house the business is for Krishna, no difference. But let me give you some practical advice that's served me. I mean, I don't live in the temple. I live in a house.
I guess, I want to, the term fanatic comes up, I don't want to become this crazy fanatic, but I feel like I'm becoming that outside of the temple. Not necessarily, I'm not pushing, I'm not you need to worship Krishna, I'm not shoving it down people's throat, but there's just nothing else that satisfies me.
Well, that's not a fanatic. That's good. That's a growing desire to be Krishna conscious. But the advice for balance that I can offer is something that I've practiced and realized in my life is effective, and that is, and our whole community at ISV, where I come from, we started from scratch, and really it's most people, only Ramananda Saka lives in the temple. Everyone else lives outside and congregates there. But I've lived by this principle that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught to Sanatana Goswami. He said there's 64 items of devotional service. Out of them, 5 are particularly potent. How potent? He said they're so potent that even if you don't have faith in them, but you have a little contact with them, then you'll be ultimately successful in your devotional service. Those are deity worship, chanting Hare Krishna, associating with devotees, living in a sacred place, and reading the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And we've molded our community around this principle that everyone can have connection with these things, even a little bit, like Wednesdays, Saturdays, Sundays. Those are the 3 main days we have class. And I see that devotees there are flourishing. But they live outside, they're working hard, they have kids, they have so many obligations, but they maintain this balance. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu encapsulated the process in these 5. And if you maintain some connection with these, no matter where you live, then you'll be supremely happy, and you'll also advance in devotional service. Guaranteed. Or your money back.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, yes, please. And just as a reminder, we have like 3 minutes left.
Okay, I have a reflection and a question.
Okay.
I wrote down something that I was thinking about earlier, and just a lot of it, something you said at the beginning of all of this, made me think of it. So a big part of Krishna consciousness is showing mercy to animals, all living things. And I dedicated my career path to animals because I care about them very personally. I don't eat them, and I don't wear them. I tried my best to respect every living thing. I am Native American, and I'm conflicted on what I believe now. I believe eagle feathers are a metaphysical healing tool, and my question is it bad karma to own animal parts that have died from natural causes?
No.
I thought it would be a simple answer, but...
And you'll find even in every culture, but even the Vedic culture, because we have connection to the Vedic culture, there are animal parts that are used for ritual and so forth from animals that died naturally. So there is no karma from that. Okay? Yeah. You can sleep easier tonight. Thank you. Nice reflections and a good question. And that brings us really to the end. So tonight, just to recap, we talked about becoming a guru devotee. Really, this is the position that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked us to be in. Whatever way that you can organize yourself, you get yourself ready so that you can be a support to other people taking to Krishna consciousness. This is the best way to position yourself so that you can please Krishna and attract his attention. And the second point we talked about is that ignorance is awkward. But we don't have to remain in an awkward situation if we take to yoga. Yoga meaning that we reconnect with Krishna. And these are simple points, but they're very profound, and they're foundational in the Krishna consciousness movement, and they're taught by Prahlad Maharaj so that we can take, we can take them up. Hare Krishna. And tomorrow is Kirtan night, right? Yeah. We're going to have Kirtan. And so tonight's really the last night that we'll have discussion and things like that, except for tomorrow morning we have Bhagavatam class. And if you have any reflections tomorrow in the Bhagavatam class of things that you've heard over the last few days that we've gone over, then you can bring them in and we can discuss some of those too. Is that good? But anyway, I'm going to miss you in the evening classes. These have been really nice. And thank you very much for braving it through the drifting snow and screeching winds to make it here. Hare Krishna. Go Premanande. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Go Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Go Hari Bo. Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Vanchakalpataruscha kripasanaveva patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha nantakoti vaishnaviniki ja.
Natari Armarman, Natari Armarman, Natari Armarman, hey, Natari Armarman, Natari Armarman, Natari Armarman, Natari Armarman.